Emilie just released and everyone's asking the same question. Is she any good? Yay, nay, or bollocks? She's not a must-pull by any stretch of the imagination, but she makes a lot of teams better, provides even more teams with side-grade alternatives to her existing best options, and she also enables some fun teams with characters that don't get used often. We'll start with this Arlecchino team because it has a flex slot where you can run who you want. So Bennett's attack benefits Arlecchino and Emilie, as well as his C6 giving Arlecchino more pyro damage. Emilie herself carries a lot of the damage you might have been getting from Xiangling had you run her in an Arlecchino mono pyro team, and then the last slot's a flex. Zhongli gives comfort and resistance shred. I also like him holding Favonius Lance here to give Emilie more energy. Kazuha buffs Arlecchino and makes sure we keep applying AoE pyro, which is useful if you go for him. Farina's an option too because she applies hydro so slowly that we can still keep burning uptime and vape a lot of the hits. Now I know a lot of you simp for Wriothesley because you like a man with a bit of cake at the back, and cakes should smell as nice as they look, so let's look at how Emilie works with him. When you apply Pyro to Wriothesley's meat chasm and then apply Dendro to make it smell nice and delicious, you create an aura that gives you a lovely cake that stays warm. The warmth radiating from his backdoor fortress is so strong that even if you were to cover that cake in cryo and send it to the North Pole, it'll still melt the frost off a penguin's ass. Toma's good at baking that cake once you obtain his C6 for the extra normal and charge attack damage, and you could even give him Deepwood for Emilie's damage. If not, you could always go with Xiangling, with her being able to summon the literal stove god for optimal ass bakage. Turns out you're not the only one that likes cake. Farina turned up and she's bringing some chunky damage with her too. In this team, I like to just pop everything and use Bennett to funnel particles into Xiangling. Of all the teams in this video, this might be the strongest of the bunch. The logic is that Xiangling, Bennett and Emilie keep up the burning aura while also dealing a bunch of damage themselves, and then Farina vapes a lot of her hits. If you're struggling for uptime on Emilie's burst, you could always give Xiangling Favonius Lance. I think this team lacks a real on-fielder, so I imagine Mualani will perform well as the on-fielder in this team if you swap out Farina when she releases. Nouvelette likes to cry, so Emilie bought him some cologne to cheer him up. Now instead of smelling like a salty wet dragon, he can smell like the princess that he is. Xiangling is here to dry his tears away, and Zhongli will drop a boulder on his head if he starts crying again. Nouvelette's so happy with all this support that he celebrates by doing his favourite thing in the whole world, pulling out his dragon cannon and squirting all over everything. 4 different elements triggers his passive for more charge attack damage. Zhongli's resistance shred makes all 3 of the others deal more damage. Favonius Lance on both Zhongli and Xiangling means plenty of particles for the team. Xiangling will need a lot of energy recharge to get a burst back with the team not having a dedicated battery. Emilie is a burning unit who likes everything being set on fire, obviously very French of her. Not that I can talk being from England, but let's put Pyro aside for a second and see if she works in Bloom. Emilie, Nalu and Kokomi with an elemental mastery build is a good core. For the last slot you could go with Nahida for content with multiple enemies and Collei for single target. Either of Collei or Nahida will want Deepwood, which will help with Blooms, but also with Emilie's personal damage with her not having access to burning for a skill stacks or a passive. While it wasn't the best Bloom team I've ever played, for content with multiple waves, Emilie makes it so that you don't have to worry about reapplying Nahida's skill. This will come in handy in those events where we get endless waves of enemies with low HP. It'll make her an okay option in Cave teams too. Definitely something for you to consider if you manage to grab him on the last banner. Of all the characters in Genshin, I feel like Sayu has one of the most fun skills of all, but there are so few teams she works well in. With her not using normal attacks, she doesn't synergize with characters like Xingqiu, Yelan, Beidou or C6 Fischl. Fortunately, Emilie's another drop and swap character which gives us potential to get some Dendro reactions off. I use Dia as the Pyro unit and you can use her burst during Sayu's downtime. Sayu's holding Favonia's greatsword, 4-piece Viridescent Venera for Farina's damage, although you could give a 4-piece Deepwood for Emilie, and she's on a full elemental mastery build. Let's give Dia a little more love because clearly Hoyoverse didn't. I like this team in AoE situations. It's identical to the Dia Mono Pyro team with Kazuha, Xiangling and Bennett, but using Emilie means less buffs and instead an extra damage dealer to make up for it. C0 Dia is still bad in my opinion, but if you can get a C1 it'll bring the team's value up a little. Her C3 gives another boost, her C4 again, and then also a C6 if she won't stop coming home. I wouldn't pull Emilie specifically for this team, but if you're a big Dia fan and are looking for more units to run her with, Emilie's an option. Given the fact that Mono Pyro is one of Dia's only decent teams, it's nice to free up Kazuha for the other side of the Abyss and not feel like the team's gimped by it. I think it's finally time to answer the question everyone's been asking. Can this team do well? Can this team do well? Candice looks nice, Xiangling makes food that tastes nice, Emilie smells nice despite being French, is a team made in heaven. I consider this to be a strong alternative to that Farina vape team we looked at earlier. We'll be using Candice on-field to vapor charge attacks. For those like myself that love Candice but were underwhelmed with her when she released, it's always great to have a new character she works with. I like Xiangling holding Favonius Lance instead of a catch because Emilie and Candice could both use the energy. I used 4-piece Heart of Depth on Candice, and if you don't have any good crit weapons, Dragon's Bane will give her a lot of benefits. If you're skipping Mualani, this could be a strong team for you. So we know Emilie works well as a Kazuha alternative in a lot of teams, but what about one of his most popular compositions? As a child main myself, it's nice to have a new character that works in teams with him. As you know by now, Child National with Kazuha, Xiangling and Bennett is one of the best teams in the game. Throwing Emilie in there means you could swap out Kazuha and the team will still deal a lot of damage. It's just that damage will be spread across Child, Xiangling and Emilie rather than just the first two. Having different elements that work in national teams is a positive because Imaginarium Theatre as of right now only gives us access to 3 elements. I still prefer the Kazuha variant, but this one has a significant benefit to it. With the Kazuha variant, there are often situations where you have a bit of downtime because you might be close to the end of a chamber and you don't want to pop Xiangling's burst. Having constant damage from Emilie can be enough to finish the chamber off, which I feel shouldn't be overlooked. I want to give a disclaimer that this team isn't as good as other Emilie vape teams, but if you wanted to do an Emilie plunge team, this is how I would go about it. C6 Bennett is going to give Emilie pyro-infused plunges. I don't think this team would work without his C6 to be honest because of Farina vape and the hits. I don't think it's the strongest plunge team either, but it does have a benefit over some other plunge teams. On top of having the plunges, you also have 2 constant sources of damage from both Emilie and Farina's skills as opposed to a normal plunge team, like Shao or Gaming teams where your only big summon damage is coming from Farina. It can be useful for picking off smaller enemies outside your plunge radius. For the last team, let's look at Emilie and Cyno. It's not great honestly, but not awful either. Emilie's not the Cyno partner we were hoping she might have been, but she gives you an option if you're tired of running him in the same Aggravate and Hyperbloom teams. It gave Tome a 4-piece Deepwood and Favonius Lance and Emilie was thankful for it. But at the end of the day, it's a Cyno team. If I had time, I'd have tried a similar team but with Raiden, Emilie, Xiangling and Bennett. If you tried it, let me know what you thought of it. For a score out of 10, I think Emilie's a decent unit, so I'll give her a 7.5. The lack of burning characters forces us into using familiar characters and reactions though. There are a fair few vape teams here, but it's mainly down to the fact we don't really have a good Dendro burning on-fielder. Kinich could solve that issue though if you decide to go for him. I'll be releasing guides for the Natlan characters when my livestream drops, so subscribe if you want to see them. I also did a guide for Yalan yesterday, so check that out if you're interested, and take it easy.